Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning and welcome to the Encounter program. I'm Reverend Rachel Helgeson, and today I have a special guest with me who's also a member of my congregation at Northminster Presbyterian Church. This is Dave Martin, and Dave is here today because I wanted to talk to him about his experience in life, but he's an active member of my congregation, but also he has served in the military, and last weekend was Veterans Day, and so I just wanted to give him a little conversation to hear how he's experienced life and what it's been like, and and also just a little tidbit is that Dave is part of the reason that I am in Binghamton, so you can partially blame him at that. But I'm really grateful for that. And
I was actually the first member of the pastor nominating committee that was able to reach out and speak with you.
Yes, it was really wonderful. I remember that conversation. So it's almost been 2 years since a little bit over those 2 years.
Over 2 years.
Yeah,
yes.
since we had that conversation.
Yep.
So Dave, could you talk a little bit about what it's been like for you in your life with your faith, but also a little bit about what it was like to serve having a faith?
Oh, wow.
I know, small questions.
Pretty broad question. Well, I recall always going to church. I know that Dad would bring us to the, we went to the local Presbyterian church. Why it was he chose that, I'm not certain. I know that he had tried out different denominations previously in his life, but when we were growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, with the local church, Presbyterian church was Westminster Presbyterian.
Westminster, so you went from Westminster to Northminster.
Yep. And where I was a member of Troop 136 and now associated with Troop 236, but.
Oh, okay, so because you're a scout,
yeah.
You've done scouts for a long time, so you've been doing that since you were young too, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. No, that goes way
so
back.
Scouts 136 to Scouts 236.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, it's being a church member, going to church, been part of my life for, forever, pretty much.
So you're a cradle Presbyterian then? Would you say that, or what did you?
I guess. Okay.
So how did military service weave into all of this? Where did that come from?
After college, I joined the Navy. Went to aviation officer candidate school in Pensacola, and went through flight training. As a naval flight officer, the Navy has two tracks for flying officers. Naval aviators are the ones who fly the plane, but there's a naval flight officer program for those whose eyesight is not 20/20, isn't perfect, but still aeronautically adapted, and serve as bombardiers, navigators, communicators, weapon systems, and such like that. My specialty was what they call radar intercept officer, RIO, and I flew in the back seat of F-4 Phantoms.
Tell me what an F-4 Phantom is. Is it
a fighter jet? Flies off of aircraft carriers.
Okay.
The follow-on aircraft to that was F-14 Tomcat. You saw the movie Top Gun?
Oh yeah, Top Gun. Yep.
Okay. A Goose. In the back seat was a Rio.
Okay.
That was in the next generation of aircraft. I flew the one before that, F-4 Phantoms.
And for friends who haven't seen Top Gun, if you can go and get it on and stream it and go check it out. It's a pretty cool movie. So
it is. Yes. pretty good Navy recruiting tool back then. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize you had done that particular thing. So what was that like? So you went to college to study
engineering. I went to Purdue University on metallurgical engineering, but then joined the Navy and
was that sort of the? How did you go from engineering? Did you feel like this sort of was a circle back into that, or for you, or did you just you're like, this is where I'm going? And
sort of where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard you talk about how you're cradle Presbyterian.
Yep.
You've done Boy Scouts for most of your life too.
Yep.
And then even when you're talking about your career path, it sounds like there's just always been sort of a thread about what's the next thing for Dave Martin. Is that an accurate?
Sort of, and somehow serving has been part of that. We've been active in church. We've gotten it. My wife and I act in other organizations, and of course now since I retired from working, I've been volunteering with the Habitat for Humanity, helping build homes.
Yep.
And of course active in the church and
in so many ways. Like you've helped with the Thanksgiving baskets and helped.
Yes.
There's a furniture closet, and you're
Right.
very much on top of making sure that people get cared for from the furniture closet.
Trying to.
Yeah.
And, I'm wishing we could do more, but there's only so much we can do. In the work I've been doing with deacons, I've had an opportunity to encounter folks within our community who are very much in need, and it's sort of wish we could do more to help them. I mean, we were all given different gifts, different talents, and some were given more than others. And some have done more with the talents they were given, but wish we could do more to help out those who were not dealt as good a hand.
Well, it's wonderful that we can shed a little bit of light, because God gives us each different sorts of gifts, and God's certainly given you a lot of gifts.
Oh,
Dave,
yes,
and
very much so. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you? So you said you were in Cincinnati, and then you were in Pensacola. How did you end up?
Oh,
in
well,
Binghamton
of course, the
from
Navy
Austin?
moves you around. Pensacola was the initial flight training, and then some more flight training in a base in Georgia, and then my first fleet squadron, a fleet unit, was in at Fighter Squadron 74 at Oceana Naval Air Station, which is in Virginia Beach,
Okay.
Virginia.
Well, it sounds like you had to suffer for Jesus in Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
That sounds like pretty. Yeah.
Well, it's a nice town to live in.
Yeah.
We were there for a few years, and back to Pensacola as an instructor in a training squadron. Then back to the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. I was ship's company on an aircraft carrier, USS America, and then on the staff of the Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Atlantic Fleet.
Okay.
And then I left active service.
And when was this about?
11 years in, so that was about 1982.
Okay.
Thereabouts. Got another degree in computer science and got hired by IBM Federal Systems Division was in IBM. It's, the Owego plant is, of course, is now Lockheed Martin.
Yep.
And has been for a while, but at the time I'd hired in, it was IBM. And we settled in Endwell.
Okay.
Looked for churches to join, and after a little changes, we ended up at Northminster. And been there since sometime in the late 1980s. I forget the year.
Okay. And so, were you looking for a Presbyterian church because of your background as a Presbyterian, or did that sort
Pretty
of
much,
just kind
yeah.
of? So, what does that mean for you to be a Presbyterian? How does that for you in your faith life? It's okay if you don't have
it's where we've been. For one thing, it helps narrow if you move into a new area and you're considering where to join. It helps narrow the choices. If you just say, all right, I'm just going to say
I'm a Presbyterian. I'm going to go look for Presbyterian churches.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the Northeast has a lot of Presbyterian churches, so that
You're
makes
familiar with the services and what things are. And I somewhat like the governance of the church in that the congregation is. Governs. It's not hierarchical. Whereas in other denominations, there would be a hierarchy that says this is who your minister is going to be. No, the congregation chooses. We called you.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It was a process. There was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for folks who aren't Presbyterian, one of the things that Presbyterians really strongly believe in is that people are working together and that they get to have a voice and vote in that call. And so when I was called to Northminster, Dave and another group of folks from the congregation,
the pastor nominating committee,
yes. Which short is PNC, but
yes,
pastor nominating committee is a little bit easier.
Yeah.
They got all of these resumes and what we call MIFs, Minister Information Forms, MIF.
That was from us. That was
that's what they gave
describing what the church was looking for.
Yep.
And
then I hand them, it's called a PIF, Pastor Information Form. So
your resume.
So basically my resume. It's just a really fancy word
we
for
had
resume.
90 of them.
So you had 90 resumes.
That we considered. Yep.
So they went through all these things, and then they came from all over the country. And
they did.
And then they decided what are the gifts that they're looking for Northminster. And then from there, they started to make phone calls and phone interviews. And then eventually,
we had several.
After some time, dwindled it down to starting to visit people and then having people visit here. And so it's a whole process. But at the end of all of this, when they decide on a candidate that they feel really strongly about, then they bring it to the congregation. And so even though they may feel strongly about somebody, it's still possible for the congregation to say, thanks, no thanks,
we want
and start it all over
That's
again.
what we want.
But it does make sure that everybody has a voice in it.
And the length of the process can be aggravating and sort of, come on, find someone, but we want to find the right one.
Yeah, and strongly believe in how the Holy Spirit's working in and through that. So, and I know that I have really felt called to be this congregation, and I know that folks here have really felt that that we're working together. So I appreciate that in a strong way. But I know that that's part of the reason you like being a Presbyterian, is to be able to say, hey, what's going on with this, or here's something that's a little bit complicated, and we know that Presbyterians pastors don't get the final say on everything. We have a session, and there's deacons. They're also ordained into ministry. Right. And you have been ordained both as an elder
and a
deacon.
deacon. I was first ordained and served in the church in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Actually, that was also where I was first clerk of session.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You're very detail-oriented. I wonder if that comes from your gifts from engineering and from also from your military service too, just to be able to see like what are the details of things.
Well, details are important. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. I'm glad there's somebody who's paying attention to the details. So, if you're just joining us now, my name is Reverend Rachel Helgeson, and I am interviewing Dave Martin. Dave Martin is a member at Northminster Presbyterian Church. He's also served in the military and is an elder and deacon at Northminster. And we've been chatting a little bit about how his faith has interwoven into the different aspects of his life, and how Presbyterianism is part of that, how his service to military has been part of that, and also some of his training and as an engineer. So I'm just really glad that Dave's been able to chat a little bit about that. I was teasing him a little bit about his detail-orientedness, but I really appreciate that in a way that I hope that you hear it, because somebody really needs to be paying attention to where the T's are have the lines going across and the I's, and that's one of your strong points and gifts.
And that was a big part of of my career the last 30 years at Owego, because I was a software engineer, writing programs, writing software, and that's what you want to do, what you want the computer to do, you have to write it very very precisely. If you substitute a semicolon for a comma, that means something entirely different, and it doesn't work the way you wanted it to. It
can be problematic.
So, very much so. Yes, that's a bug.
Yeah. So before we started talking, I remember we talked about what does faith look like for you, and one of the things I remember you saying is that it hasn't been like one particular moment. Could you talk a little bit more to that? What does faith look like throughout your life?
Well, as I said, it's. I know that some folks talk about having a real moment, and the Holy Spirit hasn't worked that way for me. Haven't had some great light or whatever shining. It's just always been part. So
is that something you felt has always been something that you've lived into as part of your faith? As things have gone well, sometimes not so well because we fall off. I mean, how did you say that God created both light and darkness,
right?
And how do we try to walk in the light? So how do you think you've tried to navigate that with who you are and what you're about and the gifts that God's given you?
Do what I can do to help. You know, you got to pick and choose how you will do that. But yes, trying to help other people, and help other people at all times. That's a phrase from Scouts, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, see, there's that intermingling going again. Yeah. I know that you have done a lot at Northminster as far as trying to think about, and we just talked about how you helped with the furniture closet. And right now you're getting ready for the Thanksgiving baskets at Northminster.
We're going to be delivering about 93 of them.
93 baskets.
Right.
And they go out to where?
Families that were identified to us through the schools. So we will be delivering baskets of turkey and various canned goods and bread and so forth to folks in Endwell and Endicott and throughout the town of Maine.
And I know there's been some donations that have come too, right? Am I remembering this correctly? A member donates bread each year in honor of his family.
That's true. Yeah, someone who has a business where that's available to him. Yes.
And then I heard this year one of our members got free apples and potatoes. Are those part of? Or that going to
I'm not certain how that quite how that happened. I think part of it was that our recent bad weather. One of our local apple orchards, you pick places was saying. The snow and the cold and so forth is going to ruin the crops. So let's get them off the trees now before so they don't rot on the trees and go bad. And so people were. That's my understanding. I wasn't part of it, and so we ended up with a large quantity of apples. And where the potatoes came from, I'm not certain. But we decided that that wasn't going to work very well to save them and put them in the Thanksgiving basket. So when we had our distribution day last weekend as part of the rummage sale.
Yeah, so we had just a little clarification. Northminster last week had a rummage sale, which is something that has been an outreach and mission for the church, and the monies go towards the church as far as the mission and ministry, but there's a day that's distribution day.
It's a name we've called it for a while and so forth. Got to put some sort of name to it. But at the end of the rummage sale, when there have been a lot of folks have been buying lots of stuff. There's still a room full of clothing and all sorts of household goods, and many of these same families that we would have been contacted for Thanksgiving baskets. We invite them to come in and take whatever they want for free, and that's they have an hour for that at that end of that afternoon, and that's when we brought out the apples and potatoes and say, take them. We've got they're free. They're for you. They've got to go. We don't have a place to store them and keep them fresh and so forth. So that's where those went.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. And so as far as how do you see those sorts of things interweaving in your life? I mean, I keep coming back to that, but do you think, so has it been a straight line? Like, okay, I'm going to go be in Cincinnati, and then I'm going to go to school, and then I'm going to go serve, and then I'm going to do this? Or has there been sort of a wavy line that's been like, okay, well, I see this is the next thing. What's the next thing that's going to happen?
Well, as far as church attendance, somewhat of a wavy line. As I suspect many college kids did, I wasn't too faithful in attendance during my college years, and of course, while I was in the Navy, when you're at sea, there's the chaplain might have services, but particularly on aircraft carriers, when you were at sea, we're flying, right. and so it could be not possible to participate in the whatever services the chaplain has. But when we're home from sea, and of course, since moving here to the Triple Cities and living in Endwell, we've been pretty regular church attenders, except when out of town vacations and such.
Sure. So so it sounds like faith it's been a windy road, but it also sounds like it's always been part of who you are too. Is that an accurate?
I'd say so. Yeah. I'd agree with that.
I mean, I think it's good for folks to hear that sometimes faith isn't a straight and narrow place, to be able to see that God is working in and through it, and that in your life that's expressed itself in a lot of different ways and different seasons in your life. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
So as far as, do you think this is maybe a golden season in your life, as far as now that you're retired and you're supposed to have more time for things?
We've in the last few years, we've often said we don't understand how we ever had time to go to work with all the different activities that the wife and I are involved in.
And so you're involved at the church, and you're a leader in the church at Northminster Presbyterian Church in Endwell, and you're deacon, but you also help with the Scouts. Is that?
Yes.
What's your capacity there?
Assistant Scoutmaster of Boy Scouts BSA, Troop 236 is my registration, but I also am on the Baden-Powell Council's training committee and help at some training events, and I'm in charge of a winter camping class that we call UKPIC. And that will be in January. That has 2 sessions. That draws people from not only our own council, but also from Syracuse. And this year we got an inquiry from someone from, I think, Utica area that might be attending. So that has drawn some people. There aren't too many people. Not a lot of folks interested in cold weather camping, but we've got a class on it.
But if you are, you can talk to Dave.
Yeah, there we go. So that and. Where are we going? Other activities, Habitat for Humanity. We sing with the Binghamton Downtown Singers.
Right.
Right now we're preparing for the concert of Messiah.
Messiah, yep.
Okay.
And that's going to be over at Sarah Jane Johnson, right?
Right. The Saturday before Christmas. I forget what the date is.
23rd.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. And Boy Scouts, so I'm also seeing something here too, you may not even notice it, but like Habitat for Humanity has been known a lot for its help and how people have come out of different faiths to be able to help people to build houses, which is a piece. I know President Jimmy Carter has had a strong part in that, and we pray for him and his family. But also Boy Scouts, a particular Boy Scouts troop that we have has a charter under Northminster Presbyterian churches. So we help oversee them, but they do their own thing, but we also support who they are and what they're doing as Scouts.
Right.
So it's interesting to see some of these points. And then even if you talk about your choral experience, you all rehearse over at Tabernacle
Methodist
in Binghamton. Yes. And then the performances at Sarah Jane Johnson, which is another church. So it's interesting to see how some of those points may not seem linear as far as how your faith is working out, but how there it is still.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you see those sorts of things, or is that sort of just like, oh well, I guess I never really thought about it that way before?
I hadn't really thought about it that way. No.
Well, we're just about wrapping up. This is the Encounter program, and we're so glad that you were able to be present with us. If you were just turning in a little bit earlier, this is Dave Martin. He is a member at Northminster Presbyterian Church in Endwell, New York. It's right across the street from main Endwell High School, and Dave has served in the military, and he has been an engineer, and we got to hear a little bit about how his life has not necessarily been a straight arrow as far as how faith has worked, but faith has always been a part of who he is, what he's about, and even if he hasn't fully understood that or seen it, that God is working in and through the gifts that he has in Habitat and in Boy Scouts, at the church, at Northminster, and also in his singing. And so God be the glory for that. We're so grateful that Dave was able to be present with us and to be able to talk about how God can work in and through us, through our gifts, the gifts God's given us, but also to give gifts to other people, to be able to say, these are gifts I have, I want to share with you. And life is not always easy. Life doesn't always come in a package, but we know that you're there and that we connect with you. And so I'm very thankful, Dave, that you decided and agreed to come today.
Okay.
And I'm also grateful to hear a little bit more about your life and how God is working in and through it. Maybe in big ways, but also in the quiet ways that you've responded. Okay. And we thank you, friends, from our Encounter program, for being in with us and tuning in with us each week. You get to hear a little bit from different folks. I come from a Presbyterian background, so you get to hear a little bit more about what a Presbyterian is. I know that Reverend Jeff Kellum is also a retired Presbyterian, and our other two hosts are Methodists. So you get to hear from us, but we also want to hear from you in all sorts of ways. We get to hear how God works in and through our community here in the Southern Tier. We get to hear from folks who come from my own denomination, but also from folks who come from other denominations like the United Church of Christ, from American Baptists, and beyond. So we welcome you, and we are so grateful that you come and tune in each week to hear about Encounter and hear how God is working in and through our community here in the greater Binghamton area. God bless you, and have a wonderful day.